In a world that can be challenging, and at times unpredictable, it's hard to find moments to focus on what you need. Join Stephanie James on The Spark as she guides you to use your inner flame to ignite your best life. As a best-selling author, psychotherapist, transformational life coach, and international show host, Stephanie is dedicated to helping you create a life that takes you, your goals, and your passions to the next level, so you can live a life that is fully lit up and fully alive. She believes that your life is meant to be a beautiful expression of the things that light you up. That by living your dreams, you give permission to others to do the same. Are you ready to feel alive and inspired to fuel your dreams and put a fire behind your desires? Let's ignite a spark in one another that will illuminate the world. The Spark, with your host Stephanie James, starts now.
Welcome to The Spark. I'm your host, Stephanie James. Hoping that you are all doing well, really just sending out so much love and joy to each one of you. Hoping that you're keeping your hearts and minds open and that you are ready to learn something really important tonight. Because tonight we have a really special guest, Jaemin Frazer. And Jaemin, I love this. Not only is he an author and TEDx speaker, he's a founder of the Insecurity Project, and he's one of Australia's best life coaches. And I met Jaemin at an NSA convention in Nashville about a month ago, and what an absolute delight. Jaemin, I'm so thrilled to have you on the show tonight.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a real treat to be here.
So Jaemin is chatting with us from Australia. Where are you in Australia?
A little town called Goldberg in between Canberra and Sydney on the eastern side of Australia.
Oh, I love it. Love it. Well, Jaemin was one of these people who stood out to me right away, not just because he's got this awesome Australian accent, but this amazing contagious energy. And just your integrity and honesty as you went up and asked a question, I think during one of the first sessions in front of everyone, and really talk about dealing with insecurity. So you kind of are setting an example by stepping up and stepping through insecurities. What a huge topic. Tell me what got you interested in the Insecurity Project.
Look, I think it was firstly to discover a mountain of my own insecurity when I stepped beyond the safe world that I'd grown up in. I grew up in a Christian home and eventually became a Christian pastor. I was a pastor for 10 years, got given the leadership of the church that I grew up in when I was 23. Loved that. Was very wholehearted about it, felt called to it. It was very meaningful work. But as I continue to be curious as a human being and understand more about myself and the world, and then got introduced to some coaching frames, it just really enlarged my world. And I was so curious about how to make a change in the world beyond the safe and known, comfortable space that I grew up in. And so I stepped out and was so excited about exploring the world, and then started to put myself out there and realized, oh my goodness, this is not the safe world that I grew up in. No one knows me here. I have no status here. I'm no one here. What if I'm going to be found out as a fake, as a fraud? I've got no substance. This is going to be a disaster. And so I discovered that all this energy and passion wasn't enough to carry me forward. I had this fear that I didn't even know it was there. So firstly, I just felt like I only had two choices at that point. I could just retreat back to what I'd known, find safety there, or I could see if this problem was solvable. I wasn't interested in managing insecurity. That didn't seem like a believable plan. It's solve it or forget about it. And so that was my quest for the next little while, just to go into the world and see, had anyone, in my opinion, shown up without insecurity? Had they found a way through this? It seemed like a very common problem, not one I'd thought much about before then, but I was curious to see who'd solved it. And it seemed like there were a number of people that I found that had found the way through the other side, were showing up with nothing to prove and nothing to defend. And so I've kind of got a real engineering bent to my brain. I love to know how things work. And so I just kind of deconstructed their process, got curious around how they did that. And it seemed that although people had found a way to be unhindered by insecurity, no one had modeled that. So that became my journey to model it firstly for myself to see how it was possible, and then out of the overflow of that to be useful to others. But then my coaching journey, just this real intention to be useful to people. I quickly found that if I was just dealing with behavior and behavior management strategies, there was no lasting change in those conversations. So to be really useful, I had to go deeper into the world of beliefs. And people were stuck in the same place I was stuck. That was stuck in the doubts, fears, insecurities, the limiting beliefs. So I knew if I could hone my skill set around being useful there, then I could facilitate transformation. So and then soon I got ruined to talk about anything else. It was just like, oh, well, all roads keep leading back to Rome. And it would feel unkind now to hold back. If I feel that this is a solvable problem, then I better keep talking about it.
Yeah, I love that. And I want to show, this is Jaemin's new book, Unhindered, and it's the 7 essential practices for overcoming insecurity. Such an awesome book. And I'm just inviting everyone to get it. This is from your research. This is really from your own personal exploration, because we all have insecurities. I think that's something important to acknowledge, that people don't want to have insecurities. And you have this line in the book that says, we want to like mask, medicate, or manage our insecurities, and we really just have to overcome them.
Yeah, there are not too many people that agree with me about this, but I'm convinced it's a solvable problem. And not only can we solve it, I really think we must. I think it's our most important adult work, is to free ourselves from the narratives we've created for ourselves, the boundaries we've set up, the assumptions, the opinions, and the stories we've told that have capped our experience, because they don't just weaken us as humans, they weaken how we show up. So therefore, they rob the world of our essence and our gift. So I think it's very, very important that we find a way to actually overcome insecurity, not just manage it. So it's a real theme of the Insecurity Project work.
Well, and it resonates with me so much, Jaemin, because that's such a thing for me, is wanting to help people become as clear of a conduit as possible, so they can bring their light and their love and their, their own healing through to the rest of the world. And like you're saying, when we're, really covered up with all these insecurities, we don't let that light of who we truly are shine. We're not able to really share our gifts with the world.
Yeah, that's so true. Growing up in a very spiritual world, I observed that a lot of the time people's spirituality was an attempt to escape their humanity. And then it got weird. So whether it showed up in the church as, really super spiritual people, or then not even religious forms. There are some people that are very spiritual, but they haven't worked out how to be human. And so to me, if your spirituality is an escape, then it's actually no value to you here. I'm convinced that the aim is to work out how to be a human first, and then to include and transcend that, because otherwise you're not a clear conduit. You're weird, you're strange, you're dysfunctional, you still bring ego, you actually create more chaos for people. You don't bring light and love. So resolve that insecurity, and then there's nothing to prove and nothing to defend, and then you're free to have a very spiritual experience of life in a way that's beautiful and actually does good in the world.
Yeah, wonderful. Because I think that's what I'm hearing from you, is that, and I know these people as well that do what I term a spiritual bypass.
Oh, well, yeah.
Right. So they bypass the earthly problems or their own, like you're saying, insecurities, limiting beliefs, how they're showing up with other people. So it's a spiritual bypass. Oh, I'm spiritual, so I don't have to do this work.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I love, it's like, yeah, I've never had that paradigm before. Like, let's do our work first. Let's become the best that we can be. And then the spiritual as an add-in, as a part of that enhances and transcends who we are.
Yeah, that's Ken Wilber's line, include and transcend. That's been really useful for me, because I think, that makes sense. Work this first, include it. You are a human. That's the central vehicle, the form. So include that, and then go beyond that into the spiritual world.
Beautiful. Jaemin, so what did you find? What creates insecurity in people?
Well, I think it's universal and unavoidable. We are sense-making creatures. We go into the world and we have experiences, but we have to decide what they mean. So the challenge is we have this sense-making consciousness turned on at a very, very young age. So that's a dilemma, because a child is experiencing adult problems through their childish frame, and they are trying to work out what it means. And so they have disappointments, they have heartache, they have pain, they have frustration, and they watch themselves have these experiences and they personalize. Why is this happening? What does it mean about me? Well, it seems that this is a reflection of me, because I'm getting bullied, but I can't see anyone else getting bullied, or my parents are getting divorced, but I can't see anyone else's, or everyone else got a bike for Christmas, but I didn't. So this must be about me. So I think it's unavoidable that, even perfect parents don't prevent their child from having moments of disappointment or pain or heartache, and just the sense-making paradigm of a child. That just makes sense. This looks like it's about me. And then you double down on those assumptions and those opinions, form agreements with words that limit you, and then live as though that's true. And these narratives become truth. They become concrete, and often go unreviewed for the rest of a person's life, which is the most extraordinary thing about insecurity. It's never real, like it's a work of fiction, but the moment you double down on it and reinforce it, it's as though it's true, and then becomes a prison you can't break out of.
And that makes so much sense to me, because I've always said, what I understand, it's believing is seeing, not seeing is believing. And it's the way that our brains work, right? So that if we have a belief, and it does happen, I think the first 7 years of life, I think they say we're in, theta brainwave state. So we're just little sponges, and we're absorbing everyone's ideas or thoughts. And if someone's like, you're a bad kid, or you don't do this well, then we go, oh, that must be the truth. And then the way our brain works, it's always scanning the environment for evidence that proves that belief. So I think you're exactly right. It's very natural. It's inherent to who we are. No matter how awesome, like you said, our parents are, I think nobody gets out of childhood unscathed, and we pick up these insecurities. So talk a little bit, let's talk about the formula, if you will. How do we start dealing with insecurities? And maybe how do we first, Jaemin, how do we even identify what our insecurities are? Like you said, sometimes it's below the radar. We don't even know we have this.
Well, it often is. And I rarely speak to people who are under 35 about this, interestingly, because it's too costly a lot of the time to examine what's beneath the surface. People are insecure about being insecure. And so you're just trying to fight and force your way forward when you're young. You don't really want to stop and review too much. In general, but midlife, people are often open for a review, because 40 is an arbitrary milestone a lot of the times, and they're thinking, I'm getting closer and I haven't sorted out this is not the picture I had in my mind. So what's not working? What am I not? I love Mark Manson's idea that all change is preceded by being wrong about something. So I think there's a window of opportunity to be wrong, and that leads a curious path back into what's actually happening here. But in terms of the formula for how you solve it, once you start to feel that there is actually some fear and that's driving you, it's to be clear about what that fear actually is. So practice one is to step into the light. Yoda's wisdom is, named must your fear be, before banish it you can. So I think practice one is all around real precision. And often when I talk to people about fear, it's very abstract in their language and in their experience. It's out there. It's a monster. They've got language like the imposter syndrome, which is not here. It's there. It's something happening to me that I can't control. Or it's the fear of failure or the fear of rejection, which sounds really honest, but isn't actually a thing. No one's actually afraid of failing. They're afraid of the personal implications of failing. Or they're not afraid of rejection either. No one in the world is afraid of being rejected. They're afraid of, if they were to be rejected, what does that reveal about them? They're afraid of the personal implication. So keep going clearer and clearer about what are you actually afraid of, and you realize you're afraid of your own opinion. That's what you've been afraid of, not someone else's opinion. You're afraid of what you think about you. And to frame it like that automatically means this is becoming a solvable problem. because opinions are the lowest form of knowing anything. And so therefore the easiest thing to change. And then if you really, really want to get precise, like you said, 0 to 7, we've made up our mind about all our most important opinions by then. So you are dealing with the opinion of a scared child, and that child thought they were right, and you've just never gone back and reviewed their sense-making paradigm. So you're dealing with the opinion of a kindergartner. Like, that's what this is all about. And kindergartners are not right about anything. Not a single thing are they right about. Even the best things, they're not right. So very solvable the moment you get precise around what the problem really is.
That is so powerful. As a psychotherapist and a transformation coach, I work with people a lot on that. There's this mnemonic device that naming is taming.
Right. Yeah.
So if you have anxiety, I love this. And if you have fear, first of all, it's naming it. What is the fear? And then really being able to go deeper and dissect it. So you're getting to what the essence is. I have never heard that before, Jaemin. I absolutely love it, that it's our opinion about ourselves. It's how we project it on others, right?
Yeah,
that's what you're saying. It's like, oh, that person will think that of me, or that person might reject me. It's actually, how am I going to feel when I look in the mirror tonight?
That's right. And it's like they will just confirm my opinion of myself. This opinion I've always felt that's lurked there, it's just going to be confirmed if I fail or are rejected. But if there's nothing to confirm, then no one has any power out there. Like, you are afraid of what you think about you. And when you really examine that, you created these opinions in moments of childish sense making, just trying to work out, why is this happening? What does it mean about you? So to be precise and name the fear, you go back, you realize this is very easily a solvable problem.
And do you find that when people are able to identify, like, wow, that really is my 5-year-old or my 6-year-old speaking, are they able then to kind of rewrite that belief or rewind and redo that belief?
Yeah, well, practice 7 is to rewrite the story. And often people want to rush straight there. They go, oh, great, I get it. So some affirmations on my mirror, just be kind to myself, write new opinions. Excellent. And look, don't let me stop you if that's what, listeners, if that's what you'd like to do, go nuts. My experience with helping people deal with this is you've actually got to fully deconstruct the old story first. Yeah. And it's well rehearsed. You've got gathered a lot of evidence over that. A lot of energy and resources has been going to substantiate and confirm that story. So you feel like it's real. You can't just dismiss it. And you can't rescue that child from a distance either, which is often a trap I see people attempt. They kind of go, oh yeah, that 6-year-old, yeah, it wasn't about you. Don't worry about it. That's clearly not true. Let it go, move on, and we're just going to start again here. Again, the problem is that 6-year-old or 5-year-old, they really were in a lot of pain and experienced that moment very painfully. And so they're not easily convinced that they're not right. You're going to have to go validate their experience and enter into their pain and sit with them a while before coaching them out of that. So there's some work to do in terms of going back and being present in that and revisiting and reframing and understanding the mechanics of what actually went down there before you can change it. But yeah, obviously the end is you created that first opinion. You've always had the pen. You're not the actor in this story or the storyteller. So you can update this as soon as you're ready. But to do that, you can't just patch a new story over the top of an old story. You'll have to deconstruct, make the first story meaningless, have no sense, before you can then have a clean slate to write a new and beautiful story.
Yeah, it's just like the spiritual bypass. You don't want to just do a bypass on your child, right?
No, you don't.
And the way I frame it is, we don't get to just flip a switch and then, this 30 or 40 years of this belief is all of a sudden, in a light switch flip, gone. So going and deconstructing, let's talk a little bit about this 100% responsibility. What does it mean to you to take 100% responsibility for how you're feeling, your beliefs?
Yeah, sure. Well, that's practice too. And the real subtlety around that is it's more than take responsibility. It's to realize you already are responsible. So I love the work of Don Miguel Ruiz, the 4 Agreements. So that book is stunning. It is a book of wisdom, as the subtitle suggests. And he just says, look, no one actually had the power to bless you or curse you. It's not the words spoken to you that ruined your life or blessed your life. It's just the ones that you agreed with. So you're implicit in your experience of life. And if you can break through the misdirection of what actually ruined you or built you when you were young, then that's where the power is. Because once people start seeing, there's an opinion problem, I get it, that makes sense to me, I know where that came from now. My dad, he was really unkind and not very present, or my teachers were always critical of me, or I got bullied, or it makes sense, I understand, or I know what was modeled to me, or the experience that I saw. So I get why I formed these opinions. But it's still to position yourself as a victim in that world at effect. It doesn't really give you any extra advantage, because it is what it is. It did happen. What am I supposed to do other than mask manage or medicate this? But when you break through the misdirection and realize, as you experience those, you agreed with words, you formed opinions. So you were at the center of the action. Not to blame you, and it may have seemed like you had no other choice, but just to be very clear about the mechanics of who did what. It wasn't your dad that said you were stupid that made you feel stupid. It was when he said it, you decided. He knows things. He must be telling the truth. It's interesting too, because often people feel more like the negative words have more powerful influence than the positive words. But it's a good example to realize the mechanics of how our life is transformed by words, because I'm sure everyone's mum has said, oh, you're awesome, you're beautiful, you're lovely, you can do anything. And you're like, oh, that's just my mum. Like, so you don't agree with those words, but then someone says you're no good, you're annoying, you're silly, you're weird. You're like, oh, they must be telling the truth. So it's not the words, just the ones we agree with. So when you kind of see that, you realize, I've always been responsible. I've always had the pen. This is my script. So if it's my script, well, then I already know how to tell stories. I've been doing it my whole life. This is work that I can do. I am capable of updating this when I'm ready. So I like that distinction. You are responsible more than just take responsibility.
Yeah. I mean, truly, what a point of power to realize that we don't have to blame everyone else. And so we're trying to fix it through someone else or some other relationship. And so, I've heard the expression before that if you're pointing a finger at someone, there's 3 other ones pointing back at you, right? And it's like, again, not to be in this, self-abusive type relationship with yourself.
That's right.
It's a powerful coming to terms with, wow, if I'm the one that created this, I can recreate this.
It's everything. And I heard Tim Ferriss, I don't know if you listen to his podcast at all, but he did an episode about his sexual abuse experience, and he had one of his friends talk about her sexual abuse experience. And I was very interested. It's a very vulnerable thing for them both to do. That was their first time they'd spoken publicly about it. But I was so horrified by their approach of the subject, because here's 2 of the most influential people on one of the world's biggest podcasts talking about, okay, so what do you do once you've identified this and their story? Tim's path to healing was through psychedelic drugs, which sure, fine. But for most of the population, that's off the table. That's not the path they're going to choose. His friend's path to healing was 30 years of therapy daily. And her comment was, there's probably another 30 years left. And so again, like, who's got the time and money or the inclination to spend daily visits to a therapist? It's like, that's too hard. That's just of course, now you're going to believe it is what it is. You can't change this. And so, people come to me all the time going, Jaemin, you're a coach, you're not a therapist. So is there stuff you can't touch or you won't touch? I'm like, never, not once, because there is no subject that actually really ruined a person's life. In every case, the mechanics of what went wrong was in the painful experience. The individual there decided the reason it was happening was because of them. So it wasn't the abuse. It was not. And not saying it was fun, not saying you would wish that on anyone, but that was not what ruined your life. It was your decision around why is this happening, and doubling down on that. And so this responsibility piece it is power. It's like, you can overcome whatever you've come through, whatever difficulty or horrible situation you've endured. you are able to rewrite the script because you wrote the script the first time.
This is such powerful stuff. And I want to make sure that we're clarifying for people that we're not saying that it was ever okay that abuse or horrible things happened. And very clearly, it's not your fault.
Of course.
And that, lots of people, I've worked with so many people that have been in abusive situations. And as a trauma specialist, the last 15 years, I've definitely worked with those folks. So I think, acknowledging, yes, boy, I mean, the most incredible difficulties, and yet the light that I'm hearing, this amazing piece is that when we say, okay, everything, the way that I responded, the way I integrated that, the belief system that I set up, yeah, it's not okay that this happened, and it happened, and I made meaning out of it, because that's how our brain works. We make meaning out of things and we personalize it. And so as you were speaking, about the 4 agreements, one of Don Miguel Ruiz's agreements is don't take anything personally. And so that's a really powerful piece in this, is that I'm hearing, wow, we can really actually use this when we take 100% responsibility for what's happened and moving forward. That's how we can change our lives.
Yeah, that's right. Because the subtext on don't take anything personally, which sounds a bit cliched, it's like, yeah, I know I'm not supposed to take things personally, but it sure feels personal. But the subheading is, because it's not about you. It was never about you. So you made it about you, but you didn't have to. So that's the way out. Yeah, so that's practice 2, the responsibility.
Love it. So we're going to need to take a really quick break, but when we come back, more of this amazing, really amazing practice. I think it's essential for everyone. And again, the book is Unhindered, the 7 Essential Practices for Overcoming Insecurity. My goodness, we all need this. So join us. I'll be right back on The Spark, Igniting Your Best Life. This is Stephanie James. I'm excited to bring to you my new film, When Sparks Ignite, available on the More You channel on Plex Network. It's about the difficult times and the challenges that we face and how they can actually become the match points that ignite something within us that becomes our gift to the world. And pick up a copy of my new book, Becoming Fierce, Creating a Bold and Beautiful Life, available at bookstores everywhere. To find a trailer for the film and more information out about the book, go to stephaniejames.world. Ignite your best life. Welcome back to The Spark. I'm your host, Stephanie James. So happy to have you here with us. I am just so thrilled at the response and your wonderful emails. Thank you so much for the emails around the film, my new film that's out, When Sparks Ignite, on Plex Network on the More You channel. Still available Friday nights. You can download Plex for free. It's Fridays at 8 o'clock Pacific time, 9 o'clock Mountain Central time. You go to the More You channel and you just click on Watch Now. And you'll be able to see the film When Sparks Ignite, which is about the challenges and difficulties we face and how those can become the match point that ignites something within us that becomes our gift to the world. So join me and 11 other inspirational thought leaders and change makers from around the world as we come together and truly bring to point how your healing matters. So thank you so much for joining us here tonight. My very special guest is Jaemin Frazer, and we are talking about his new book, Unhindered. And it is so amazing because it's dealing with the topic of insecurity, which is something I think we struggle with, whether you are president of the United States or whether you're digging a ditch or whether you are speaking on TV. There's insecurities in all of us, and it's how do we overcome it so it's not tamping down the light and the gifts we have inside of us. So Jaemin, tell us a little bit. I asked you during break if you'd be willing to share a personal story of yours and how you have overcome an insecurity. Can you share one of those stories with us?
Yeah, for sure. So a key distinction in this model around overcoming insecurity, people ask me all the time, is it possible to actually solve this? Like, is that even a real thing? And what do you mean, for all time? So my distinction is not only can you, but you must. It's your most important adult work to free yourself from the narratives of your childhood that would put a cap on your experience, and to show up here at your current level of growth, present and unguarded, like with nothing to prove, nothing to defend, and able to be at your best where it matters most. That's the aim, to be here, fully here. But as you do that, you'll be inclined to explore new horizons and take new territory and enlarge your experience of life, and therefore experience new uncertainties, and then bang your head on new insecurities, things that weren't limiting you at the last level of growth, but are now limiting you there. So so my distinction is, have I solved it? Yes, 100%. I'm not insecure. There's no insecurity that weakens me. There's no imposter syndrome. There's no, oh my goodness, I don't belong, I can't do this. No, I do. I'm wholehearted. But then my world keeps getting bigger, and I do find narratives that are subtle and that show up. So just a couple of weeks ago, I had this reoccurring dream of having no pants on. It's a bit of a theme. Some people have dreams like that, but this has been one that had plagued me for some time, actually. And it was this, I thought I was prepared, going to somewhere important, only to find, embarrassingly, got no pants on. Horrible experience to have this dream. And so when I explored this within myself, what's this about? And there was a really interesting conversation happening about the fact that I was still showing up to some new experiences, like the boy, like I didn't know what I was doing, like I needed to think more about my message, that I was probably wrong, that others knew better than me. And so I was showing up as a student, weak, on the back foot, unprepared. That's how I was showing up, like I had no pants on and I was about to be exposed. And so that was curious to me, because I'm like, wow, I don't think about that consciously, but obviously in some new growth areas, bigger spaces I'm playing in, I'm still showing up like that. And so I explored some agreements I'd made in my past around not being a know-it-all, not being arrogant. To be a good person, I'll be a humble person. I can't handle, I'm not capable of handling truth. I need to always defer to others, never draw attention to myself. That's how I be a good person, because I can't handle, the limelight, really. So I made that agreement when I was young. It was kind of something that, conversations with my dad, I think that was something that he'd agreed with too. And so that made sense to me. So I made an agreement that I hadn't even seen it cap my experience. And so to go back and review that agreement, update that agreement, and then double down on the fact that in this season of my life, I'm not running any more experiments about insecurity. I've experimented for 20 years in every way, shape, and form. I have gathered enough data to know what I know about this now. So, okay, show up and know what I know, speak what I know. And the moment I do that, the dream disappears. It's like, cool, great. You are prepared. You are a big boy. You do have your pants on. You are speaking out as something embodied and true and real. There is no need to be insecure about this. You've got this. So that was my most recent experience of uncovering and reframing insecurity.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, because it's so recent, and so real. And I think it also, to your point, it's not that we never experience insecurity again. It sounds like when it pops up, then we're able to address it. And for me, Jaemin, I always think about us, we're like nature, and nature is always moving towards healing. So as we get to these bigger arenas, so to speak, as we're expanding, whatever is unhealed within us, or might say anything unlike love, comes up for the purpose of being healed. So the dream was revealing to you, oh yeah, there's this little boy who still has this agreement. And because these things are so subtle, or they've been subconscious or unconscious, it's not until we reach this certain level, okay, now I'm feeling more safe, I'm feeling more expanded in the world. Now there's room for what's not that to come up. Has that been your experience?
With that, exactly. And it's an important distinction to make, because often when people have done work on this and then see insecurity show up again, the temptation is to see that as regression. Oh no, it's still there. I thought I solved this. I thought I was already healed. That must have been I didn't do it properly, which means I've failed at the process, which means this was a waste of time. Like, no, you did it very effectively at the level of growth, and then you've grown. So this is evidence of growth and progress. Keep doing it. Same practices that got you free and healed the last time, they'll work again at the next time.
Well, and you met my partner, Morgan, at the NSA event. And that's one of the things he said to me when we were first together. And if something would come up for me, he'd say, "Oh, what a blessing." Mm-hmm. And at first I didn't get it. I was kind of like, this doesn't feel like a blessing. I'm feeling anxious right now. And what I really started getting is, oh, that's it. Right? If we do have a trigger or we do have one of these things come up, it's a blessing because it's what's unhealed within us. Yeah, and it's absolutely coming up for that purpose. And it's at a different level. I love how you shared that with your client. Yeah. Well, so let's talk a little bit more about these steps and the practices in your book. We don't have to go through each one of them, but sure. I mean, but there's so many gems in here that, what feels important?
A quick summary. So, practice 3 is to stack the pain. And that is important because in my discovery, no one had ever solved the insecurity problem except from a place of great pain. So pain's a very loving and honest voice, and most people want to turn pain off. But pain is designed to protect us from further pain. So you put your hand on the fire, it's actually supposed to hurt. You feel bad about yourself, it's supposed to feel bad. That is a message to do something. So to stack the pain is to do an accurate cost assessment of these unresolved opinions, these agreements from your past, these unhealed wounds. How are they actually costing you as an adult in the real world? It's easy to pretend there's no cost or just, it is what it is. But to get eyes on the actual cost drives up a massive amount of pain, but also a massive amount of motivation to go, cool, well, then I must go on a journey back and to examine these things. Most people have got a lot of pain linked to self-awareness and exploration and going back. But if the pain of being here now is higher than the pain of change, well, then cool, you've got to go. So that's 3. 4 is the other side of motivation. Anthony Robbins talks about this really well. Be clear about what you don't want and what you're moving away from, but what are you moving towards? So what do you want? What's the dream? What's the compelling vision? Without that, this all gets way too hard very soon. I do love the hero's journey. It's a very beautiful metaphor and maps the personal development journey very, very closely. And so, the hero's always got to have a quest. If Frodo's not compelled to rid the world of the ring, what's he doing risking his life every day getting attacked by orcs? Like, it just doesn't make sense. So if you're not in touch with this desire for meaning and fulfillment and happiness, if you've really suppressed that and haven't revisited that, what's the point of wading back into difficult things? You'll run out of steam very quickly. So that makes the list of essential practices. And then just the other one to highlight is maybe the most it creates a bit of cognitive dissonance when I mention practice 5, because it's to get help from someone who doesn't care about you. So the tendency is to want someone, when you're ready to have someone involved, you're going to want someone who's going to believe in you and care in you and encourage you and support you. But in my opinion, those people get in the way because they confuse you about who the hero is. So no one's coming to save you. You created this mess and you're the only one who can heal it. You will need help, though. You'll need help from a person who knows the way, who has embodied the way, who can give you the steps, and then bugger off out of the way so that they don't weaken you. So there's always a Gandalf, a Yoda, a Dumbledore. There's a wisdom character that shows up when you're ready with the tools, with the path, and you'll think they're the hero, but they're always gone too soon, and you've still got to go fight the dragon and face the trial. So that one's a very important piece of the puzzle.
Well, and I think what you said is so essential, because I know when I read that title, I was like, someone that doesn't care about you. And so it's not, I love that, because it's a detached person who doesn't have an invested interest in one way or the other. I mean, they want you to get better. Obviously they care about you. They want you to succeed. And they don't care as far as, like, I love how you said that, because sometimes it's our family and our best friends that actually unintentionally can kind of keep us at a lower vibration or a lower level.
Mm.
Sometimes, it's even out of their own fears. Like, I want to do this for your own good, or, oh, I know that you are worried about your weight, so I'm going to tell you look fine.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's all well-intentioned and unavoidable. Friends and family, they do have agenda. They do want for you. They do care about you, but they're not going to be the ones that are going to help you transform. It will get in the way, because the key distinction in that one is, in order to really become precise, do practice one, to step into the light, you require the safety to tell the truth. So you can't do judgment and awareness at the same time. And the subtle forms of judgment are positive. They're wanting. If you talk to someone who wants you to be well, you can't tell them if you're not doing well. You'll disappoint them. You'll upset them. So you've got to give the right answer, not the true answer. So you can't afford to fully shine the light in case you implicate yourself and you upset them. So now you're just playing a game. So I tell people, look, you can't confuse me for someone who cares. Like, I know I look like a guy who cares, but I won't lose any sleep over you. I'll forget your name. And it's very disconcerting for people. And I do say, look, clearly I care about people. Obviously, like, this is what I was born to do, and I do wholeheartedly. I just wouldn't dare bring that into this space, because the moment I do, I weaken you and I get in your way and I stop serving you. Now it's about me being the rescuer. So, like, I will be very clear about you are responsible for your own journey. You will need some tools. We all need help along the way, but the right help in the right way is very, very important.
And I love how you say, and then booger off. So that person can incorporate and assimilate the tools you gave them and complete their own journey.
That's right. And people always feel like I bugger off too soon. Like, wait, what? What do you mean? No, I'm not ready. Like, yes, we've had all the conversations. Yes, the theory's done. You have to go live this in the world, and just go watch Lord of the Rings or go watch some hero's journey movie to go, this is how it must be. You must feel like you are unprepared for this, but you'll discover you're stronger than you think. You'll discover you've actually got this. And if I stay longer, I'll just keep confusing you about who the hero is, and you'll keep deferring to someone else's wisdom or judgment. So off you go.
Love it. Love it. So talk a little bit about, rewriting the story, which is the end. When we rewrite the story, I kind of jumped into that right away. And essentially that's what we're doing through this process.
Yeah, it is. And it's beautiful work and meaningful work. I like the distinction around creating some inertia around that new story for a short amount of time. So just like the old story became default because you rehearsed it, probably unconsciously, and doubled down on it, so too when you write a new story, just writing it once, even though that becomes true and you align to it, you actually will need to reinforce it for a little bit of time after that discovery. The old neural pathways probably still exist, even though you've deconstructed the story. There's still triggers that could make you think that was real and go down that path. So for a little while, I think maybe even 2 or 3 weeks, just some repetition around that story and the opportunity to course correct and come back and remind yourself, hang on, what's true again? Who am I again? How does this work for me? What am I agreeing with? So every time I've done this work, and the numerous times I've updated stories, I have a water tank on my property, and that's built into the hill, so I can walk on top of it. And so I wander around on that, and I love. Again, I think it was Anthony Robbins' distinction around affirmations. You have to say it until you agree with it, and then until you feel it. Like, that's the clicking in. That's the agreement piece. Words without agreement are nothing. So say it until you agree it, see it until you believe it, or believe it until you see it, however you make that distinction. So I wander around in my tank, saying things that at first, like, that doesn't feel true. It's like, cool, well, it isn't true for you yet because you have no examples of this and no experience, but you're the storyteller. So if that's what you'd like to be true, well, then lock it in and then begin with the end in mind and work your way backwards. So I love I also love the distinction around most people live their life strategy state story. So they get up in the morning and they dive into what they need to do based on whatever state they find themselves in, with no awareness of the narrative that they're living out of. So it's a very ineffective way to do life. But if you can reverse the order, live story, state, strategy, wake up in the morning, knowing you have the pen, doing any work around deconstructing old stories, and then aligning yourself to new and compelling stories, then go prime your state and then go do work, like that is an effective way to live as a human. In fact, that'll give you a very unfair advantage in the world.
I am so in alignment with you. And I just have this big grin on my face, Jaemin, because 5 years ago, I was gifted a trip to Anthony Robbins' Unleash the Power Within, which was 4 days of immersion with him in New York. And, it really did change things for me. And that priming video that he does is still available on YouTube.
Yeah.
And it's from that actual event. And it's what you're saying. It's that essential. I love that you say that, because it's priming ourselves. So heart, mind, body, soul, your breath, getting your breath in alignment. And then what is the story that you're saying to yourself, and bringing up what you want to be thinking about, remembering joy, thinking about what you want to create today, and I just think it's so powerful. I think I listened to that 3 months every single morning.
Yeah. Amazing.
And it really restructures those neural pathways so that we are disconnecting from our old story.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I don't think when I do this, I feel like just some intensity for maybe 3 weeks, and then it feels like it's solid. And it's not something I have to pay attention to consciously. It's not like I have to manage myself and constantly retell stories at every moment of the day. Otherwise I'll drop back. It's like, that's not how it works. Just enough reinforcement to create some inertia to go, cool. Now I find evidence for that in the world. That's all I'll see. I'll see that I'm delightful, that people enjoy my company, that I'm good at what I do. That'll be the evidence that I find. And so it'll create its own feedback loop that is very empowering.
Well, and that's what the research is telling us, 21 to 30 days for something to become a habit. How great. Really,
Absolutely.
It's a short-term commitment for big time gains.
Yeah.
So as we're getting ready to kind of wind down a little bit, Jaemin, what is ahead for you? What is it that, as you have overcome and dealt with your own insecurities, what's next for you? What's the next big challenge?
Yeah, so I used to have language like I was on a mission to, solve insecurity in the world. And then I heard myself say that one time, and I thought, ugh, I'm on a mission. Like, no one wants to hear someone on a mission, like they're preaching at them, like ramming something down their throat. So it kind of aligns to how I think about purpose too, because often what I see and hear in the world about people on a purpose journey, it's still about them. It's like, look at what I'm doing, validate me, love me, accept me because of the work that I'm doing in the world. So that doesn't feel like purpose to me. That feels like, your purpose cannot be to prove that you matter. Like, that's your work. That's your adult work. And then once you've done that, then you're free to connect with a purpose that's bigger than you and not even about you. So when I think about insecurity and the purpose piece, like, I'm bored with talking about insecurity. I promise you. I talk about it all day, every day. When I'm asleep, I'm still running workshops in my sleep. I hear myself run workshops real time. I'm having coaching conversations. I'm explaining the same concept, thousands of times. But it's too bad. Like, it would be very unkind to stop talking about insecurity. It's what I was born to do. And so when I think about what's next, I go, well, it would be very unkind to not go to the highest parts of the world, the most influential parts. I dream of coaching presidents. I dream of consulting to the UN. I dream of, working with captains of industry, people who are making decisions that impact the world. Our world leaders are deeply insecure, and we suffer because they haven't done the work. That was the question I asked at the conference. Have we done enough? Our world leaders, that have they evolved their consciousness? They're the ones pulling the levers, pressing the buttons, making decisions on this, the technology, the climate issues, the economic crises. But they haven't done the work. And so we suffer. So I must think about insecurity and solving it at that level. And so writing, speaking, coaching in the biggest rooms, in the highest places in the world, that's what's next for me.
Beautiful. I love that. That just inspires me so much. And I have no doubt that we're going to see you there, Jaemin. How can people get a hold of you and find out about your workshops, and do you do things that are also online so people even in other
Yeah,
time zones or
of
countries
course.
like us can
That's
access
right.
your
Yeah.
wisdom?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, you can find my podcast, The Insecurity Project. If you can spell my name, I'm the only Jaemin Frazer in the world, as far as I can tell. So easy to find on the socials. You can jump on my website, jaeminfrazer.com, and take an insecurity test. So there are 2 tests, just a bit of fun for people who are a bit nervous about exploring this, but find out where insecurity is costing you in your life and then where it's costing you in your business. And then you can access a range of books and then coaching stuff from that website as well.
So great. This is just so inspirational. And I just am so thankful that you're sharing all this wisdom with so many people, Jaemin. Thank you for your gift and your light, and for doing your own work and not bypassing it, and just truly sharing this amazing content with the world. Thank you.
Well, the same to you, Stephanie. Thank you. It was incredible meeting you and Morgan in Nashville. And the work you're doing in the world too. Beautiful stuff. So thank you for having me.